Emanny gets left out as a Joe Budden co-host again. Yeah, a new article came out espousing Joe Budden as some sort of new podcaster who's figured out the digital age, and it was very much establishing him as a thought leader and content creator for the podcasting world, and someone who kind of left his rap career behind to become one of the kings of a new medium called podcasting. Well, for me, the most interesting part as far as the show dynamics was how Emanny was not included as one of the co-hosts. Now, for those of you that don't know, Emanny has been on the show for a few years now, and every time it comes to being classified as a co-host, he gets left out. For example, he was also left out of the New York Times article. Remember Flip, Mark Lamont Hill, Ish, Ice, they were all included, but Emanny was not. Then there was the show intro. Remember when everybody was highlighted, but Emanny was not on it. Melissa Ford was both in the New York Times article and the show intro, but in this article, he's nowhere to be found. Now, the most interesting thing about this to me is that, yes, I certainly believe Emanny will be upset, and it's going to be kind of fascinating to see how he pays lip service to it or how he pays lip service to not caring. Remember, another thing about Emanny that's interesting is that he was the first person on the show to start a Patreon. Now, I know Flip, Mark, Melissa Ford, they started their content while being on the show. But of Joe Budden's friends, he is the first one to launch one. And I think it could be linked to his positioning on the show. It almost seems like he's the low man on the totem pole. And you got Ish, Ice, Mona, Melissa Ford, even though she left, Flip, Mark Lamont Hill ahead of him. And I can't help but think he probably feels like he should be ahead of Ice, or not Ish, but at least ahead of Ice. Like, how does Ice get all of this pub and he's the one being left out of the meeting room? I mean, Ice, when he got there, he was essentially kind of given the training wheels and allowed to learn on the job. But now he's being forced into positions of being spotlighted, being positioned as a big part of the show. Joe Budden's always talking about how great Ice is. And a lot of that came from the fact that Ice was always regarded as the one you had to treat with kid gloves. Meanwhile, all of the other people on the show got dogpiled. You couldn't, you had to make fun of them. But Ice, it was like, you protected by Viper, stand back. But let's get into the other parts of the article that I think were interesting. Like I said, it establishes Budden as a major hip-hop media figure for 10 years. The podcast started in 2016, and now, I believe in February of 2026, it would have been 10 years. So for sure, we're seeing a big deal, and I wonder what they got on tap for February. Additionally, they highlight how Joe Budden is known for his intense rants, but he's calm in person. I guess the article is like, hey, Joe's actually he's not like the guy on the show who screams for no reason. Once again, they spotlight the members of the team: Flip, Mona, Ice, Ish, Parks, Mark Lamont Hill. Mona just got there and she's already getting shine, man. They left out Emanny. That's messed up. They also talk about the 70,000 Patreon subs and the 20 million projected revenue in 2025. Once again, Joe is being more transparent about how much he's making because they accidentally leaked the Patreon numbers. They also talk about how they cover rap, culture, politics, and viral moments. And they also say that the arguments are real. They're not staged, which I always thought was the case. I feel like they play into them. They might throw gas on the fire, but a lot of the tension from the show is really real. What storyline from the show turned out to be completely fake? None. They always in time come out as real. So it's actually true to life. Then they talk about the show style, how it's organized chaos, no script. And I guess now we can see why they say the show doesn't prep, that they just kind of put stuff on the board and whatever they want to talk about, they talk about. They don't map out certain talking points, and you can see it. Some parts of the show always to me felt a little off. I still don't know how often they always have somebody calling on air. The last few episodes, I noticed the ringing alert, and I'm like, man, this is a podcast, bro. I know it's organized chaos, but this is what we doing. They also talk about rejecting the Spotify renewal and say that the Spotify deal was worth 2 million per year, so 4 million total, and how Joe got 70% of the deal. So what does that mean? They got like Rory and Maul got 15% of that, and Joe got 70% of that. Do the math. Also, Joe Budden highlights how he was an early adopter of rap forums, mixtape culture, and Ustream. That is completely 100% accurate. Joe Budden was on Boxden, Reddit, Ustream, and all of these message boards just chatting away. And I don't think there was another rapper, at least openly, talking about that. So he is right. He was the first to the digital streets. And I think it's just because he's kind of like a neurotic dude. Like he likes engaging in constant feedback. He likes people talking about him. And you see that reflected in the spaces. Joe Budden also said that he's big on ownership and that he buys music instead of trusting streams, which means that he buys like the 9.99 album and he goes on that route instead of doing the streams. I actually do that too. He also says his independence is motivated by past industry mistreatment. Of course, he's talking about his deals with Def Jam, Amalgam Digital, and all of the places that he felt he couldn't get properly valued. So that's obvious. And the cast works. He said this in the article. The cast works because they're longtime friends with chemistry. I think they're longtime friends that you can pay now, so they force that chemistry sometimes. And Budden is also positioned as a pioneer of modern rap commentary. Another part of this whole article is that a podcast is coming that's attached to the article. So subscribe to the Rolling Stones page, the YouTube page, if you want to check it out. Like they didn't just do an article, they actually went to a studio and recorded a podcast. Now back to what I said in the beginning, Emanny was left out of this. And what's funny enough is Ian Schwartzman would join me on Spaces to talk about the article and also why Emanny was left out.
What do you consider a co-host of the Joe Budden podcast? Because I've always kind of characterized anybody who's on the show, whether it be Patreon or regular pod, as a co-host. But it's almost like that. What is the characterization?
Okay, in my head, a co-host is a consistent member of the show, whether that's on the public releases or the Patreon releases, and someone that is actually hired to be on the show.
So Emanny hasn't been regarded like he's in both the Time article and the Rolling Stones. He gets left off as the co-host. I don't. It's weird.
Yeah, that is weird to me. I wish the publications would start including him because I consider him a co-host. He works for the Joe Budden Network, and he's a great addition. I don't know. I'm going to have to start taking that up with some of these publications.
I would assume that bothers him.
Yeah, I feel like it probably does too. I mean, it would bother me.
Yeah.
I mean, ego. I have a big ego in general, but like.
So there you have it. It was an interesting conversation. There's some theories going on about the podcast paying for promotion and how they are now investing in ways to make the podcast gain more visibility. Ian steadfastly denies it. He says that he's never, ever paid for article show promo. And I could see that. I just think it's more about making a call. And the New York Times and Rolling Stones, I don't think they work that way. They're legacy media. So they probably get paid through ads and not from people spotlighting them. But you also have to showcase when people pay for ads like that, like integrations. But let me know what you think. Did you read the Rolling Stones article? Do you feel like you even care about this stuff? Are you one of those listeners that just like, I'm going to listen to the pod. I don't really care about what Joe Budden got going on outside of it. This is all just a puff piece. And to me, a lot of these pieces are actually communication that Joe Budden is trying to do to people in the industry, not necessarily his fans. This is what Charlemagne used to do. Remember when Charlemagne was trying to get a deal, he would always go to Vulture or go to other places to show I'm doing the thing. So now Joe Budden is playing the game that others played a lot better than him before. And he's spotlighting himself so that way he looks like more of a thought leader in not just content creation, but the business of content creation. All right, everybody, follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. Follow me on Patreon. And let me know what you think about Emanny being left out. What ramifications does this have? Will he ever be included? This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.